It's nice to see you guys again. Welcome to Get Your Play Online. My name is Jalen, and if this is your first time ever tuning in, I just want to say welcome. You're in for a real treat. Today, we are going to be making Galaxy Play-Doh. So, I made a few colors ahead of time to show you what we're making today. So, I made some purple Galaxy Play-Doh with some sparkles in it. And I also made a lighter purple with some clear sparkles inside. So for today's activity, you're going to need a few things, all of which you can find in your kitchen. You might have to ask a parent or someone with you to help you find these items. First, you're going to need some vegetable oil, some salt, flour, whatever sort of sparkle that you want. You could have glitter, you could have confetti stars. I have some, it's called iridescent glitter, which is essentially just some clear and sparkly glitter. And then I also just have some confetti glitter that's blue and silver. You'll also need cream of tartar, a bowl, some food coloring, a pot because we're going to be working on the stove top, and then different measuring cups. Also, it might be easier to mix up this recipe if you have a mixer, but if not, you can just use a spoon. So let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to turn on our stove. I have my stove turned on a medium heat. So for my stove, this means that it is at a number 4. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put together flour, salt, and cream of tartar. For this recipe, you need 1 cup of flour. So I'm going to get my flour over here, and I'm just opening it up. And I have my 1 cup scoop right here. I'm going to take my scoop and I'm either going to see if it fits in the bag, which it looks like it's a little too big. So I'm going to start out with that, but then I'm going to end up dumping the flour. And I'm doing this over my sink right now because it can get a little messy. So I'm just dumping the flour in my scoop. That's a 1 cup. And when you're measuring dry ingredients for a recipe, one way that you can make sure that you're getting the exact amount is grabbing a butter knife and leveling off the top of your container or your measuring spoon. So I'm just going to put my bowl underneath here and I'm just going to level it out to make sure I'm getting the exact amount. So it's flat because I used the flat side of the butter knife. So now I have that ready. The next ingredient that I have is a third of a cup salt. So I grabbed my 3rd cup and I'm just going to fill it up with salt. And again, since this is a dry ingredient, I'm just going to go over my bowl and I just moved it with my butter knife to make sure that it's all even. The next thing that we need is we need 2 teaspoons of cream and tartar. So when you're using measuring cups or measuring spoons, one way that you can tell if it's a teaspoon or a tablespoon is by the letters that are on the actual measuring spoon. So this one, you're probably not going to be able to see, but this one says 1 TSP, which means teaspoon. If we would have needed a tablespoon, we would have grabbed a bigger one that says 1 TBSP. So that's that's just a little trick for you to understand what measuring spoon or what measuring cup you're supposed to be using. So I'm going to take my cream of tartar now, and I'm going to take the lid off of my cream and tartar because it's easier for me to measure. And I'm just going to tap. And then I'm going to get my knife again with the flat edge, and I'm just going to go back and forth to make sure I have the correct amount. So we're going to need 2 teaspoons, but I'm going to start pouring in the flour. I'm going to tap it, make sure I get all that out. The salt, the 1/3 cup salt, 1 teaspoon of the cream of tartar, and then I'm going to take the cream of tartar really quickly, and I'm going to get the other teaspoon. I get my knife and level it out and put that in there. I'm just going to use my little knife to start stirring in the pot. Again, the pot is pretty hot right now. It's on medium heat, and it's getting ready for our liquid ingredients that we have to mix in this other bowl. Since I have some dry ingredients in the bottom of the bowl, I'm going to rinse it out because I don't need that. All right, now we are ready to do our liquid ingredients. When you're measuring liquid ingredients, you typically do not use scoops that are used for dry ingredients. You use a special measuring cup, which can look like something like this. So the first thing that we need to do in this separate bowl is we need to do a cup of water. So I just went up to the line that says 1 cup. I like to also double check and put it on the counter to make sure it's even, looks good. I'm going to pour that in my second bowl. And then I also will be needing 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil. So if we're hearing tablespoon with a B, that means that we are going to be needing to use a bigger measuring spoon. So here I'm taking the measuring spoon that has a B, so a tablespoon. I'm going to take my vegetable oil and I'm going to do 1 scoop of that. My last step for the liquid ingredients is to put my food coloring in. So I had previously made a darker pink, or a light pink and a darker purple, but I'm going to, since it's Galaxy Week, I'm going to make some blue Play-Doh. So I'm just going to take off the cap of the food coloring, and I'm just going to put a few dots in there. I kind of want it to be dark, so I'm going to do quite a few. And if you can see what your mixture should kind of look like right now, is it should start to combine, but since it's water and oil, it's going to look like the oil is not combining. So I'm going to put the lid on my food coloring, put that back in. I am going to either try to mix with a spoon, or I can use the mixer. I'm going to see which one is going to work for this recipe right now. So I'm just stirring over here. It looks like the dye is actually mixing really well, so I don't think I'm going to have to use a mixer. Yesterday when I was doing my other colors, I used a gel-based food color, which came out with a different texture. So I had to mix that with a mixer because it wasn't combining like it should. So now we are going to start adding the liquid to the dry. Let's watch to see if we can see what it's going to do. So you want to do this at a slow pace, a little bit at a time. So I'm just adding a little bit of blue, and I'm going to start stirring that in my dry ingredient mixture. You can tell that it's starting to form a little bit of a still a lot of flour, a lot of salt that isn't getting mixed. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to take some more of this liquid. We're only going to do a little at a time to make sure that we're able to stir it all together. So this is what I'm looking at right now. It looks like it's starting to make a dough, but I think that we still need to add some more liquid. I think my pan's getting a little hotter than I want, so I'm going to turn it down a little bit. I'm just stirring, making sure it's mixing as best as it can. And I'm just going to add the rest of the liquid ingredients to the dry ingredients that I have. I'll let that sit for a little bit. I'm going to keep stirring it to make sure that it's combining. As you can see, it kind of looks like there's some watery pieces, and then it looks like there's some Play-Doh that's being made. My pan is going to combine those two as I stir. Also, depending on what food coloring that you use will depend on how well your color shows up and what kind of color you have. I also have found that Play-Doh recipes work really well if you make them with Kool-Aid. They smell really good and the colors are very, very bright. So if you had a Kool-Aid packet instead of food coloring, you could have done that for this recipe. So I'm just making sure that it's all combined as it should be, that it's getting hot enough. I'm just going to let that sit there for a few minutes to make sure it's combining. After we do this step, we are going to have to let it cool because right now with all the heat, it's super hot, so we're not going to be able to play with it very well. And as it cools, it'll also start to harden a little bit, which will give it that normal Play-Doh consistency that you're used to. Once the Play-Doh also cools, then that's when we're going to be able to add some of the sparkles, the glitter, whatever you have, the stars. And then when it completely cools down, then that's when you could choose to put the different colors together and create one big thing of Play-Doh, kind of like in a galaxy with the different colors. So now I'm going to take some tin foil. You can have aluminum foil or you can have clean foil, which is the clear. I'm just going to take a little piece of this and I'm going to set it out off to the side because I want to make another color and I don't want that in the way. So this is kind of what the end result looks like. It kind of looks like a ball of dough, which is exactly what we want it to look like. I'm just going to take it over here and I'm just going to plop it on this piece of aluminum foil. Steaming pretty good, so it's a pretty hot consistency. So I'm also going to clean off my spoon, but I think I'm just going to get a different spoon instead. So now I'm going to make a different color. I'm going to see if maybe a different color would look a little different. So have are yellow, green, blue, and red. I think that I'm going to try a green, but I'm going to add some blue to it to see if maybe that will give us a darker color than what we have right now. So again, I am going to take the flour. I need 1 cup of the flour. So I'm going to dump it over my sink in case things go out of the scoop. I'm going to take my butter knife and I'm going to run it across the top to make sure it's all flat, like so. Next, I have my salt. I'm going to put the salt in this 1/3 cup. I'm going to fill it all the way up to the top. And I'm going to use my butter knife to clean off the top. Now I'm going to need 2 teaspoons of the cream of tartar. There's 1 teaspoon. I'm going to set that to the side. I'm going to get the liquid ingredients ready. I'm going to clean out my bowl a little bit since I'm going to use it for a different color. I'm done with my dry ingredients. I'm going to set those off to the side. I need 1 cup of water. Plug the cup line. Make sure it's okay. Looks good. So we have the 1 cup of water. We're going to do the 1 tablespoon of the oil. Put that right in there. Looks good. And now I'm going to put in my colors. I'm going to add a little bit of the blue. I'm going to add some green. So we can watch to see what it looks like when it starts to combine. It kind of just looks like a dark color. Can't really tell what it is exactly yet. So that looks good for now. I'm going to get another spoon out for us to start mixing. I'm going to put this pot back on, adding my 1 cup of flour, my 1/3 cup of salt, my 1st teaspoon of cream of tartar, getting my 2nd, using my knife to clean off the top so it's even, adding that in there. I'm going to use my spoon to kind of mix it up, make sure that the salt and the cream of tartar and the flour are all together. Now I'm going to start adding a little bit of my liquid to my pot. Again, my pot is on medium heat right now, so for me that means it is on a 4 out of 8, so I put it about halfway. And we're going to make sure that we're just doing this a little at a time. When you're mixing a bowl, you want to make sure you also get the sides of the container to make sure you're getting all the right colors. And keep adding some more. A little at a time. Also, depending on what coloring you're using, make sure that you're being careful because you don't want it to get on your clothes and not be able to come out. But I advise if you want to do a different version of this recipe that you could try to do Kool-Aid for the coloring. I personally think it smells really good. I think the color comes out nicely. And I just overall think it's a really fun fun way to make Play-Doh. So sometimes your Play-Doh will turn out like this. You can kind of tell that there's a lot of liquid in there and not a lot of the dry ingredients left. So I'm going to let it sit for a few minutes and keep stirring. But if I think that I need some more dry ingredients, I might just add some more flour. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my flour. I'm just going to put it into my measuring cup. I did about half. I'm just going to throw it in the pot, see if that helps bulking it up, make it a little thicker. Looks like it's doing its job. Baking sometimes can be like a science experiment. Sometimes things work and other times they don't. And that's what makes it really fun, is you have to play around, you get to test out different hypotheses and see if you follow a recipe will actually work. I'm going to just let that sit for a little bit. I'm going to check on this Play-Doh over here. So this Play-Doh is actually cooling down pretty quick. I bet that in a few minutes we'll be able to add some sparkles to it, which will be a lot of fun. But letting this sit a little bit, it's still pretty runny, but it also is starting to look a little bit more like Play-Doh. When you're making Play-Doh, it might get a little tiring to keep doing the stirring. So if you want to have a friend help you, if you want to have a sibling help you, a parent, maybe even a teacher. Also, some fun things to do with Play-Doh. You can get some plastic knives or plastic forks, and you can use those to cut up your Play-Doh. You could also use cookie cutters. You could use scissors to cut your Play-Doh. But for this week, for Out of This World, I think that this green reminds me of an alien. So I can make an alien out of this green Play-Doh. I could make the moon out of my blue Play-Doh. I could combine all of them to make a sort of galaxy kind of colored system. And all of them I can make little planets out of. I could also make a world out of this green. I can make this be the land, and then the blue could be the oceans or the bodies of water that are on our world. So now I'm going to take my aluminum foil again over here, and I'm going to strip off a little piece. I'm going to put it over here so I can let my Play-Doh dry. This is what it ended up looking like, just like that. And I'm just going to pour it off right on top of this piece of aluminum foil. I'm going to set my pot out to the side, and I'm going to make sure I turn my stovetop completely off, but it will still be hot. So while I'm letting those other two colors dry out a little bit and kind of cool off, I'm going to clean up my workstation a little bit, and I'm going to show you guys this other Play-Doh that I made. So the other Play-Doh colors that I made like a light pink, and I made a purple. Some people might call it around like a lavender. So I'll just bring my laptop over here so we can kind of see this a little bit better. There we go. Okay, so this is my purple one. You can see that there is some sparkles inside, that they're blue and they're silver. But I'm just going to rip off a little piece of this Play-Doh. And Play-Doh is really fun because you can mold it, you can shape it however you want to go. So I'm just going to make what looks like a little pancake, a purple pancake. I'm going to try to make it kind of round. But this is kind of what I'm working with. So that's going to be my outer layer. I'm going to try to make Saturn. We'll see how this goes. I'm going to take some of my other Play-Doh that I made with like the light pink. I'm going to make it into a ball. Might need a little bit more Play-Doh to make it into a ball. When you make a ball, you just kind of squish it together and you roll it around with your hands. Make sure it combines. So creatively, this kind of looks like Saturn to me because it has that what is supposed to be the outer ring around it. I think that looks kind of cool, but I like to keep my Play-Doh separate so I can keep playing with them. So I'm going to squash this, I'll put it back with the light pink, and take my outer ring of Saturn, and I'm going to squash that and put it back with my pink. I'm going to grab a different piece, or I could grab the same piece of the light pink. I'm going to see if I can make sort of a moon. So I got a little piece, and it kind of looks like that, but with a moon. It's called a crescent. It's a crescent shape. So I'm just kind of forming this with my fingers right now. I'm trying to make what looks like a moon, a unique moon. But the moon, if you guys have watched other videos this week, there was another girl that did a really cool activity showing the different moon phases with Oreos. So if you weren't able to tune in during the live session, make sure that you log back into Facebook after this is done and check that out, because it was a really cool way to learn about the moon and why it looks different sometimes, why it doesn't always look like this. So when I think of a moon, this is the kind of shape that I typically think of it as. It kind of looks like a little chair, like a little person could lay right there. This is my moon. If you had a cookie cutter right now, you can make maybe a star. There's stars in the sky in the galaxy. But for this, I'm just going to try to make a little ball so I can, actually I'm going to do it with this purple. See some different colors. I'm just going to grab some of this, roll it with my hands, and I'm going to squash it to make a circle. And this is going to be my sun, my purple sun. So this kind of to me looks like the moon and the sun, and they go together. Sometimes you see the moon and the sun in pictures like that. Now I'm going to check on our Play-Doh that we made today. Excuse me for having to move my computer today. So the blue is cooling down, green still pretty hot. But I'm going to take the confetti glitter. I think the blue is ready to have some glitter in it. You want to make sure that it is pretty cool when you do this, just to make sure that it sticks in with the Play-Doh. So I'm just going to pinch and do a little bit on top. And then what we're going to do is called kneading. So kneading happens a lot with bread to make sure that it rises. And I'm just kind of folding in the Play-Doh to make sure that the confetti is staying inside. I might need to wait a few more minutes to make sure that this is drying as well as it should be. So we're just going to go back with the Play-Doh. So like I said, if you have different clay, like knives and forks, this would be really fun to play with the Play-Doh. I also think that if you have some sort of galaxy idea, like if you think that you could make an alien, I say you should make an alien. I was wanting to use the green to make a little alien, but we can see if maybe we could make it with a different color. But it's really fun to add the different sparkles and the glitter into the Play-Doh. You can't really tell, but it's kind of glistening. It's kind of shimmering in the light because it has the glitter on there. So Play-Doh is really fun to work with. The Play-Doh is only fun when it's not dried out. So to make sure that your Play-Doh doesn't dry out, you need to make sure that you have it in a container that has a lid on top. And this is perfect size for how much Play-Doh this makes. I'm going to see if maybe I can start putting some more glitter in here. The green feels like it's actually cooling off pretty well, so I'm going to try the green and see if we can add some sparkles in there. So I just have some sparkles right here. It looks like hot, but we're going to knead it. Make it all go in the green. Glitter can be very messy, so make sure you're asking your parents before you do any of this to make sure that if glitter would get somewhere, that it would be easy to clean up. It's actually working out really good. The green is super sparkly, which is so much fun. Of course, if you don't have sparkles, you don't have to add them. But this is what my green galaxy Play-Doh looks like. So I'm going to let that cool a little bit, and I'm going to start seeing if I can combine these other colors. So when I think of a galaxy, I kind of think of a black Play-Doh, a darker purple, and maybe blue. Because of the food coloring that I used, I couldn't get my colors that dark. But I still think that they'd be really cool to combine all together. So we're just going to try to put a little bit of all of them and see what we can make. So I'm just kind of swirling them all together, rolling them in my fingers, seeing what I can get. Of course, you don't have to do this. I just think it's pretty fun to add different colors to see if we can make a different color or how that would work. So this is what I ended up with, which I think looks so cool. I love how it's all swirled and how they have combined. Granted, I wish the colors were maybe a little bit darker, but I think this is still so cool. You can see the different kinds of sparkles that I used. I'm just going to kind of set that to the side. And I'm going to take buttermilk that I was using earlier. I'm going to see if I can make a star out of my knife. Stars can be really tricky to make. I'm not the best at them, but they're fun to make. Again, if you have cookie cutters, this would make this a lot easier to do. I guess I need to add a little bit to the top for my. That's funny. Well, it kind of worked out. This is my star that I tried to make out of the combined Play-Doh. But really, this is just a fun activity that you can just keep playing with. You can store it and you can keep using it at different times. But once it starts to dry out, it doesn't become as fun because you can't easily play with it and do things with it. So once it gets dry, then that's when I would suggest throwing it out and asking your parents if you can make another thing of Play-Doh. But for now, this is all that I have for us today. I'm so thankful that you guys tuned in today to get your play online, to come spend some time with me to make some Galaxy Play-Doh. Make sure that you check out the other videos that we've had on other days and to make sure that you log back in for the rest of our summer programming. We have a lot of cool ideas for you, and we cannot wait to see how your activities turn out. Make sure that you also log in later for our different bedtime stories. But for now, It's see you later, and I hope that you guys enjoyed your Galaxy Play-Doh.